Was the OnlyFans empire is failing, apparently. So I'm gonna see what's cracking.
Currently, the media space has been dominated by how much some top earners are making on OnlyFans. But what hasn't really been discussed is how the company has lost billions of dollars in valuation in a very short amount of time. And things just got even more messy because is now in a very bad situation after the CEO passed away. So essentially, you have one of the biggest platforms in the world, especially when it comes to that profitability per employee metric that you've probably seen online. And they just lost the one person running it, and almost nobody knew who he really was and that he existed. So the dude never gave interviews. There's really no real footage of him online. And one of the only pictures of him online was the one from his LinkedIn that had no ties to the platform whatsoever. So that's a little bit interesting. But
That makes sense. Back in the day when people were pimping, they always tried to stay like anonymous. Same thing with like prostitutes. Like prostitutes would try to stay anonymous. Which I don't know why this is such a weird group in a weird time. I'll take the glasses off for this. But they consider OnlyFans bitches OnlyFans models. That's not modeling. When there was a prostitute, you didn't call them a street model. If a bitch is showing her coochie on the street for money, she's a prostitute. If she doing it online, the same exact thing, showing the cooch for money, she's an e-prostitute, not an OnlyFans model. But you know, whatever, bruh. Whatever. You know, I'll just be talking, man.
But for years, he was quietly making billions running one of the most controversial platforms on the internet. But then, in just the last month, he passed away and left the entire business in limbo. So, I mean, to catch everyone up to speed here, OF was created in 2016 by a guy named Tim Stokely. He was the youngest kid in a family from Essex, England. And he spent years trying to launch internet business after internet business and had a whole lot of failures. And the guy burned through a whole bunch of his own money and goodwill from friends and family, to put it lightly. But his dad, Guy, real name by the way, he watched multiple projects go essentially nowhere and had funded more than a few of them. So when Tim came back with yet another idea, he went, okay, here's £10,000 and that's the last one I'm funding. Little did he know though, that money became the seed funds. And the original structure was simple. Creators set a monthly price, subscribers paid it, and the platform keeps 20%. And I guess the creator walks away with 80%. Tim's original pitch wasn't necessarily focused on adult content, but the idea had been open to anyone who could build a paying audience, including adult creators since 2017. And from the start, it was a family operation in the early days, with Tim's brother, Tom, running the operations and their father, Guy, handling the finances. Guy, I guess, was just their guy and father. And that one group, I guess they figured out the model faster than anyone else. And that showed up in some serious numbers because in 2018, the platform was getting traction, but running headfirst into some structural problems. The payment processors that made it possible to, actually collect the money from the subscribers weren't a big fan of the adult side of their business. And obviously, no payment processing means no business, full stop. So Tim sold it. And the buyer was someone that almost nobody had heard of, and nobody would really hear of him for many years to come. His name was Leonid Ravinsky, who was born in Odessa, Ukraine in 1982.
There's some stuff I could say about that motherfucker because I've seen some stuff about him. I know just a little bit about him. But I'm not going to say it just because a lot of people tend to lose their jobs and, they bank accounts get closed, credit gets closed, all type of weird shit. Motherfuckers may know what I'm saying and who I'm talking about here. It's a group, not a person. But yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that. He's within one of those groups. If I were to get big, stupid rich and everything, yeah, I'm gonna out the groups and I'm gonna say a bunch of bullshit. And they just gonna have to deal with it. But I'm not there right now, so I'm gonna just stay quiet.
Scaling internet companies while keeping his name almost completely out of circulation. And even after he became the owner of one of the most talked about platforms on the planet, a single photo of him made the rounds, the same one over and over, which was attached to a LinkedIn profile that described him as the president at Leo.com and, completely left OF out of the picture. So essentially what we know about this guy is he lived in a $19 million waterfront property in Miami, but he gave 0 interviews. He made no public statements. He was, I guess, for every practical purpose, someone who did not want to be found. When he was presented with the chance to buy, he did so in 2018 for $30 million. And it's safe to say that was a phenomenal investment for him because in 2019, the platform processed around $300 million in total payments and cleared around $7 million in profit. Then a year later, that gross payment volume hit $2.2 billion. Then by 2021, it was approaching $5 billion. And none of these numbers were being announced, but the company files with the UK as required. But Leonid had no interest in turning any of these numbers into some massive press release like many other entrepreneurs would. But then came that moment that probably told you more about OF than anything else, because in August of 2021, the platform announced that it was going to ban explicit content. Now that was confusing to a lot of people because that kind of sounds like if Burger King announced it was going to stop selling burgers. So why would they ever do that? Well, it makes sense a little bit later on when you get the full picture. But obviously, the response from the creators on their platform was immediate and very clear. So 6 days later, the ban was reversed, and I guess that just showed the creators that they're the...
I guess they knew they weren't gonna make any more money once that started happening. But like, y'all advocated for getting naked on there for money. They just hopped up and said, nah, bro, don't ban it. We trying to get naked. What's up with our generation, bro? I'm so happy that I never had a part in this. I never, bought OnlyFans shit. I never followed none of these OnlyFans bitches. I didn't even follow them on IG. I didn't download no OnlyFans app if they have an app. I'm not sure if they do or not, but I never used the website, none of that. And I'm so happy I didn't contribute to the funds these bitches are getting.
Product. They actually have the power here of this platform. Because at the end of the day, the platform cannot exist without the creators and the consumers paying for it. So the reason all this actually matters becomes a whole lot more clear once you look at the numbers though. Because in 2024, they processed $7.2 billion in total transactions between the fans and the creators. OF's cut of that was about 20%, and that came out to $1.41 billion in net revenue. That is a behemoth of a company. But after expenses, pre-tax profit landed at $684 million, with the entire operation ran by only 46 full-time employees. That is insane. And then Leonid's personal payouts track the platform's growth as you would pretty much expect, because in 2021, he collected around $284 million. In 2022, he collected $338 million. In 2023, he collected $472 million. And then in 2024, he collected $701 million, which works out to about $2 million per day every day for the entire year, which means the total earnings pulled between 2021 and 2024 were just under $1.8 billion from a company that he paid roughly $30 million for.
Bro, he made a lot of money. $2 million a day, every day. $1.8 billion. He died now. What is he gonna do with the money now? They bury him with some of it? I don't know where everybody stands. I really don't give a fuck. But you gotta go face God with all this stuff he did. That $1.8 billion don't matter when you die. Now you dead, but the OnlyFans creators still going. They popped off. They do Instagram videos, YouTube, all type of shit. It's a platform that's being pushed consistently. I think what you contribute to the next generation is so extremely important. Having children, raising good children, raising them to be good people, shit like that. His contribution to this generation and the next generation was this garbage ass platform that just makes people degenerate and fucked up. I was saying this recently when I was with my wife and we were driving around. We had went out. It was a random Tuesday in the afternoon. It was 1 p.m. and I just saw so many people, nice ass cars, people dressed nice, whatever. And they just going around enjoying themselves, getting coffee, getting food, going to Walmart, whatever, going to the gym, all type of shit. I was like, bro, what do these people do for a living? to where they have all this time and out randomly throughout the day doing whatever they want. What do these people do for a living to spend all day on this platform giving other people money?
The distribution between the creators is wildly uneven because, you have this whole notion where a bunch of people would start an OF and make a whole bunch of money. But for the most part, that's not true. It's very similar to how Twitch is in a way. I don't really like drawing comparisons between Twitch and but you have a handful of top streamers on Twitch that make a crazy amount of money, and then the average streamer makes way below minimum wage. And that's the case with as well. But I mean, that's just a whole nother topic for its own. But the thing is, by 2025, Leonid was looking for a buyer. And it didn't take long for him to realize, selling this platform is going to be a challenge. Because on paper, I mean, the investment is insane. Over $1.4 billion in annual net revenue, profit margins that most businesses would consider borderline unbelievable, roughly 380 million registered users, and fewer than 50 people on payroll. If you strip the context and handed someone the financial statements, they would assume they were looking at some sort of tech unicorn that had figured out everything. However, the context is the biggest problem here because a large portion of the institutional investors, the ones with the actual capital to do a deal at this scale, they operate under something called vice clauses, which are restrictions embedded in their agreements with their own backers that prevent them from putting money into certain categories. Because often, these firms don't only use their own money. They have liquidity providers or people who invest money into them, and they operate as a hedge fund, and then they deploy other people's money with the end goal of, beating the S&P 500 in an annual return.
I agree with that. This is so insanely bad, not just because of what the ladies are doing and what the men are doing on there. That's terrible, but it's the fact of what it does to people. People let themselves get so messed up off of this. It's like watching Instagram Reels all day, or watching Instagram Reels just too damn much. It doesn't have to be all day, just too damn much. When you watch an Instagram Reels continuously, you start to develop this short attention span because the Instagram Reels, the TikToks, whatever, they're only like 30-second videos. Yeah, some of them are a little longer, but you keep swiping through these videos and they're changing topics so quickly. And when they keep changing topics, your brain is just switching topics every 30 seconds or whatever, and you get kind of used to it. So then when you go and have a conversation with somebody, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people, I can't talk to a lot of people because they just piss me off. They can't be engaged in a conversation because they have to continuously switch topics. They have to talk about something that's giving them constant dopamine. This is the same thing with this. You getting on here, you seeing all these ladies, it's instant access to essentially whatever you want for ladies, for men. When you go home to your wife, when you go home to your girlfriend, when you start talking to women, whatever, you start to get bored. Because after, it's not immediately you're going to get bored, but after a while you're going to start to get bored because you've had access to whatever you wanted, and that really messes up the sexual aspect of life. I don't think the sexual aspect of life should be such a big deal. I don't think it should be so much time of your day is put into this. That's the dark side.
So the UK communications regulator, they hit with a £1.4 million fine in early 2025 for a weak age verification practice, which, might not be the biggest deal for them financially, but it's a pretty clear sign of where this enforcement is going. And then you have that exit problem, because even if someone bought it, how do they eventually sell it? So the asking price of the platform started at about $8 billion, and no one was interested, despite their insanely high valuation. But the firm that eventually emerged,
if these people, these multi-billionaires, these extremely rich people don't even want to buy the platform, how do you feel as some cornball sitting in your house paying some bitch or some man who's already rich as fuck off the platform to see them naked or to see they shit, whatever they posting? How do you feel? Like, do you not feel like a cornball? I'd be at home like, damn, I'm tweaking. I gotta quit this shit. Like, these billionaires don't even want to put their money into it, and they have too much money to give a fuck. You, on the other hand, are sitting here working a job every day, working hard for your money, paying bills, working hard to pay bills, struggling a lot of the time for a lot of people, especially with the way the economy's going now. And then you turn around and give your money to these cornballs who are already rich. You got to be a special type of weakling. But then again, you don't have to be a special type of weakling because such a huge part of the population is doing it. And that's why this platform is making so much damn money.
As I guess the most serious buyer was Architect Capital, a San Francisco-based investment fund that got its start in 2020, providing credit to Latin American startups. And they had more recently become known for its tendency towards complicated situations, because its founder, James Sagan, was one of the larger investors in Juul, a, vaping and nicotine product that you guys are probably familiar with at this point. And honestly, that's just a whole nother video, because Juul completely took over the world like right before the pandemic, and it definitely did extremely well during the pandemic. And then it seems like it kind of got like banned, at least most of their flavors got banned. And then suddenly you had like Geek Bars and all these other like off-brand versions of Juul, which arguably are worse, that kind of took over everything. But yeah, long story, but essentially Juul had its products pulled by the shelves by the FDA, and they later settled more than $1 billion in lawsuits over allegations that it was being marketed towards teenagers. So I mean, it's safe to say that Architect's brand has some tolerance for risky investments. And the pitch Sagan made to the potential backers had two core ideas. First, diversify the platform, push it towards mainstream creator niches, and try to make it competitive with something like Patreon, rather than positioning it as purely an adult content site. Obviously, OF is primarily an adult content platform, and the majority of the traffic and subscriptions and the money all comes from that. And without that core, it would just be a minor player when it comes to competing in the space with YouTube, Patreon, and Spotify. And now that Spotify also added long form content and subscription models. But I feel like it might even be smaller than Rumble if they tried to play in the non-adult space. Also, fun fact, since I'm mentioning the years, OF has genuinely been trying to build a safe for work community on the platform, including chefs, athletes, musicians, comedians, and fitness coaches. And they also launched their own safe for work streaming service called OFTV back in 2021. And
I feel like that's not gonna go well for me, myself, if they try to get me to do some deal to go on there, and promote content, whatever, and just do normal shit. For example, let's say I was a chef and I'm cooking on there. I say, hell the fuck nah, because this platform is already known for what it's known for. I ain't finna hop on there and start cooking and promote the platform when it's known for what it's known for. Not just because of the image it would give me, but because, like I said, I don't want to promote that type of shit. So I feel like a lot of the people who would be making content on that platform that is not adult only content are gonna say, hell the fuck nah, I ain't making content on this bitch ass platform. I don't want to be on here with e-prostitutes. I don't want to be on here where e-prostitutes got their money. It's just not happening.
I don't see a world where OF is actually able to compete with any of these platforms in the safer work space because, the stigma that comes with the name. It's just like, I don't know. I just can't see most creators being very inclined to be like, hey guys, follow my unless they're paid like a massive bag.
That's what I was saying. And a lot of them, even if they are paid a massive bag, they ain't gonna want to do it anyway.
Yeah, currently, the valuation on the table is $3.5 billion, with Architect taking 60% of the equity in the deal. So in just a few years, this has essentially lost $4.5 billion in valuation because no one wants to buy it. And the Wall Street Journal had originally reported a total deal value, including debt, at $5.5 billion, compared to an earlier $8 billion valuation just 1 year before, with slower growth and tougher sale process dragging the number down. And this number was apparently dragged down due to slower growth and just a tough sales process. But Sagan's $500 million fund wasn't nearly large enough to cover a deal of this size on its own. So he spent months going door to door trying to assemble the capital. And the family offices turned out to be the most receptive audience, largely because they don't really face the same restrictions that prevent more of the, mainstream funds from joining. And the deal was supposed to close by the end of March of this year. But then Leonid passed away. and everything just got way more complicated. Obviously, I don't want to sound disrespectful here, but terrible time. Just when everything seemed to align, he passed away. And this happened on March 20th, 2026 in Florida. And the platform made an announcement with a brief statement saying that he had passed
Good riddance. Good riddance.
after a long battle with cancer, but his family asked for privacy and no details were shared. But what came out in the following days were how few people actually knew about how serious his condition was. And sources told the media that Leonid himself had driven the urgency behind the sale because of his health. Because the guy was apparently trying to get a deal closed specifically because he was concerned about leaving his family in a complicated situation without clear ownership. And as a part of that, in 2024, he transferred his stake of the company into a private trust, with his family being the expected beneficiaries. So obviously, if the deal with Architect Capital was already messy, it just got so much worse. Because the firm was still in the process of raising the equity it needed when Leonid passed.
Okay, I ain't trying to talk about the dead in any type of way, but he left the heir to be his wife. What a weakling. What the fuck? Like, I get that you want your family to get the money, but now you gonna have your wife running a e-prostitute company? Is she supposed to be like the new Ghislaine Maxwell or something?
As of this video, the deal remains open, and the future of OnlyFans right now is genuine uncertain, which is why it seems like the OnlyFans empire is collapsing. And the company has a current CEO. His name is Kelly Blair, who has been running the day-to-day operations, but what's clear is there's a lot of money at stake, a lot of different interests, and a company that, despite everything working against it, keeps printing cash at a rate that makes it very hard to ignore. So, I mean, it's safe to say whatever happens next will probably not be any more bizarre than the story of this company. I mean, the company's story is how a $10,000 loan from a dad with way too much patience suddenly turned into a $7 billion a year empire ran by some secret Ukrainian billionaire no one has ever heard of. I mean, come on, this is such a crazy story. And I feel like this is just a situation that no one's been talking about, because every time I hear OF in the news, it's about one of their stars making like $1 bazillion a year. So I just wanted to come here and talk about it for a bit. So hey, if you're new here, my name's Atozy, or A to Z, and we...
Damn, boy. Man. Like I said, I ain't gonna say nothing about the dead, but I hope the company has a hard time. I hope things get worse for the company. I hope the company fails. I hope it just disappears. Actually, it'd be nice to see them banned everywhere. That would be nice. I mean, we already got enough bullshit that our generation and the upcoming generation is gonna have to deal with. So, you know, it would be nice to just see this all go together. But I guess we'll see. It's, you know, I guess it's a waiting game. I'm so tired of seeing what he said, which is seeing some star making a bunch of money off of this website, turning around, acting like they the shit, made it from the ground up. Like, bitch, where are your morals? Where are your morals at? Maybe you made it from the ground up, maybe. But where are your morals at? If you made it from the ground up, you got all this money, you doing well, everything, does it really mean anything if you sacrifice morals? Kind of like if you start a company with your homie and then you sell your homie out and you, like, you know, cut him out the company in some slimy way. Like, you made it, good job, but you slimed your homie out and you don't really deserve to be there. That's the same thing with these creators. You know, they, on this platform in particular, they made it, but they sacrificed morals and now they're just a slimy individual. Is it really worth it?